I reversed my fasting glucose from 98 to 84 milligrams per deciliter in 90 days. My deep sleep increased from 47 to 78 minutes nightly. My waist circumference dropped 2.3 inches. One of the most significant changes I made was strategically consuming yogurt at night, a practice that sounds simple but involves profound mechanisms affecting gut microbiota, circadian glucose regulation, and sleep architecture. I'm a genetics professor studying metabolic regulation and aging biology. For decades, I've investigated how nutrient timing intersects with our circadian clocks, gut-brain signaling, and metabolic pathways. Today, I'm sharing the science behind nighttime yogurt consumption, the benefits, the protocols, and the critical warnings most people never hear about. The gut microbiome and circadian rhythm connection. The human gut microbiome follows its own circadian rhythms. Intestinal bacteria populations and metabolic outputs fluctuate predictably over 24 hours, directly influencing host metabolism, immune function, and sleep architecture. When I consume yogurt at night, I'm delivering live bacterial cultures during a specific window of gut receptivity. Traditional yogurt contains Lactobacillus bulgaricus and Streptococcus thermophilus, while enhanced formulations add strains like Lactobacillus acidophilus, Bifidobacterium lactis, and Lactobacillus rhamnosus. Three key pathways make this timing effective. The gut epithelium undergoes circadian-regulated permeability changes. Tight junction protein expression follows a diurnal pattern, with increased permeability during active feeding, transitioning to enhanced barrier function during rest. Introducing beneficial bacteria during this transition allows optimal colonization without competing with daytime digestive activity. The gut produces approximately 95% of the body's serotonin. While peripheral serotonin doesn't directly cross the blood-brain barrier, it influences gut motility, vagal nerve signaling, and provides precursor substrate for melatonin synthesis. Lactobacillus species upregulate tryptophan hydroxylase expression, the rate-limiting enzyme in serotonin synthesis. Short-chain fatty acid production from bacterial fermentation peaks 4 to 6 hours after probiotic consumption. When I consume yogurt at night, this production window aligns with deep sleep, precisely when the gut-brain axis is most active in memory consolidation and metabolic regulation. After 90 days of consistent nighttime yogurt consumption, my bifidobacterium populations increased by 340%, and my firmicutes to Bacteroidetes ratio normalized from 4.2 to 1 down to 2.1 to 1, a pattern associated with improved metabolic health. Glycemic regulation and the second meal effect. One of the most compelling reasons to consume yogurt at night involves its impact on overnight and next morning glucose regulation through the second meal effect, where food consumed at one meal influences glycemic response to the subsequent meal. Consuming fermented dairy in the evening reduces next morning postprandial glucose excursions by 20 to 30%. The mechanism involves multiple pathways. Yogurt's protein content, 8 to 12 grams per serving in Greek varieties, stimulates GLP-1 secretion from intestinal L cells. GLP-1 enhances insulin sensitivity and slows gastric emptying. The lactobacillus strains in yogurt inhibit DPP-4 activity, extending GLP-1 signaling beyond its typical 2 to 3 minute half-life. Yogurt consumption at night helps maintain hepatic insulin sensitivity during overnight fasting. The liver typically increases glucose output through gluconeogenesis during sleep. Participants consuming fermented dairy before bed had 15% lower overnight hepatic glucose output. The calcium and magnesium in yogurt, approximately 150 to 200 milligrams calcium and 15 to 20 milligrams magnesium per serving, directly participate in insulin signaling cascades. Calcium is required for insulin exocytosis from pancreatic beta cells, while magnesium serves as a cofactor for over 300 enzymatic reactions, including insulin receptor tyrosine kinase activity. Yogurt's casein protein provides sustained amino acid release over 6 to 8 hours, preventing the hypoglycemia rebound hyperglycemia pattern that can occur during prolonged overnight fasting. I monitor my glucose continuously. On nights when I consume yogurt, my overnight glucose variability averages 8.3%, compared to 14.7% on control nights. My fasting morning glucose averages 84 milligrams per DLS with nighttime yogurt versus 92 milligrams per DLS without. Over 90 days, my HbA1c decreased from 5.6% to 5.2%. Sleep architecture and tryptophan metabolism. Yogurt contains approximately 50 to 70 milligrams of tryptophan per 150 gram serving. Tryptophan is the sole precursor for serotonin synthesis, and serotonin converts to melatonin. Here's the critical insight. Tryptophan competes with other large neutral amino acids for transport across the blood-brain barrier via the LAT1 transporter. The ratio of tryptophan to competing amino acids determines brain tryptophan uptake, not absolute levels. Yogurt's protein composition provides a favorable tryptophan to LNAA ratio of approximately 0.12 to 0.14, compared to 0.08 to 0.10 for most protein sources. The modest carbohydrate content triggers sufficient insulin release to drive competing amino acids into skeletal muscle, further enhancing brain tryptophan delivery. Consuming tryptophan-rich foods with modest carbohydrates 2 to 3 hours before bed increases sleep efficiency by 12% and reduces sleep onset latency by 19 minutes. Beyond tryptophan, yogurt's probiotic bacteria produce GABA, the primary inhibitory neurotransmitter. While peripheral GABA doesn't directly cross the blood-brain barrier, it signals through vagal afferents to influence central GABA tone. My results: deep sleep increased from 47 to 78 minutes nightly, a 66% improvement. Sleep onset latency decreased from 23 to 11 minutes. Sleep efficiency improved from 82% to 91%. Protein synthesis and overnight muscle preservation. For individuals concerned with muscle mass preservation, particularly those over 50 facing sarcopenia, nighttime yogurt offers significant advantages. During overnight fasting, muscle protein breakdown typically exceeds synthesis, creating a net catabolic state. This nighttime protein deficit contributes to the 3 to 8% muscle mass loss per decade, beginning in the 4th decade of life. Consuming 30 to 40 grams of protein before sleep increases overnight muscle protein synthesis rates by 22%. Greek yogurt, with 15 to 20 grams of protein per 200 gram serving, is ideal due to its casein-dominant protein fraction. Casein forms a gel matrix in the stomach, providing sustained amino acid release over 6 to 8 hours, fundamentally different from whey protein, which peaks within 60 to 90 minutes. The amino acid profile contains high leucine content, approximately 2.5 grams per 200 gram serving, which is the primary trigger for mTORC1 activation. About 2.5 to 3 grams of leucine per meal is required to maximally stimulate muscle protein synthesis in older adults. Over 18 months of consistent nighttime yogurt consumption, combined with resistance training, my appendicular skeletal muscle index increased from 7.8 to 8.4 kilograms per square meter, and grip strength improved from 38 to 44 kilograms. Bone density and calcium bioavailability. Bone remodeling follows a circadian pattern. Osteoclast activity peaks during the night, creating a natural overnight negative calcium balance. Calcium at night more effectively suppresses nocturnal bone resorption markers than morning supplementation. Yogurt provides 150 to 200 milligrams of highly bioavailable calcium per serving. Dairy calcium bioavailability is approximately 32 to 36%, compared to 21% for spinach and 5% for calcium carbonate supplements. The lactic acid produced during fermentation enhances absorption by chelating calcium to maintain solubility, stimulating intestinal calcium transporter expression, and creating favorable pH for active absorption. After 24 months of consistent nighttime yogurt consumption with weight-bearing exercise, my lumbar spine T-score improved from negative 0.8 to negative 0.3, and femoral neck T-score improved from negative 1.1 to negative 0.7. Critical warning: lactose intolerance. Lactose intolerance affects approximately 65 to 70% of global adults. While yogurt is promoted as lactose-friendly, this requires nuance. Traditional yogurt contains 4 to 6 grams of lactose per 100 grams. Fermentation reduces, but doesn't eliminate lactose. Individuals with lactose maldigestion tolerate yogurt significantly better than milk, with 75% fewer symptoms. But better tolerated doesn't mean symptom-free. Consuming yogurt at night is particularly problematic for lactose-intolerant individuals because symptoms develop 2 to 8 hours after consumption, during sleep. This creates nighttime gas production, fragmented sleep, and urgent morning bowel movements. Recommendations: select Greek yogurt, approximately 50% less lactose. Consider lactose-free products. Start with small portions, 50 to 75 grams. Consume with other foods, or consider lactase enzyme supplements. Critical warning: histamine intolerance. Fermented foods, including yogurt, are high histamine foods that can trigger symptoms in susceptible individuals. Under normal circumstances, dietary histamine is rapidly degraded by diamine oxidase in the intestinal epithelium. However, individuals with reduced DAO activity, estimated at 1 to 3% of the population, experience histamine accumulation. Symptoms include headaches, nasal congestion, hives, flushing, tachycardia, and anxiety. Nighttime consumption is particularly problematic because histamine levels naturally rise during sleep. Adding dietary histamine compounds this effect, potentially causing sleep disruption or morning headaches. If you suspect histamine intolerance, eliminate fermented foods for 2 to 4 weeks while monitoring symptoms, then reintroduce systematically. Critical warning: added sugars. This is perhaps the most widespread problem that completely negates nighttime yogurt's metabolic benefits. Commercial-flavored yogurt typically contains 15 to 25 grams of added sugar per serving. Consuming sugar before bed creates metabolic disruption. Rapid glucose absorption triggers insulin release when insulin sensitivity is naturally declining. Identical glucose loads produce 30 to 50% higher insulin responses in the evening compared to morning. Elevated nighttime insulin suppresses growth hormone release. Growth hormone mediates 80% of overnight fat oxidation. Pre-sleep carbohydrates reduce nocturnal growth hormone pulse amplitude by 40%. Sugar-induced insulin spikes create reactive hypoglycemia 2 to 4 hours later, during early sleep, triggering cortisol and adrenaline release, fragmenting sleep architecture. My rule: only plain unsweetened yogurt. If sweetness is desired, add fresh berries or monk fruit extract. Critical warning: timing and digestive burden. There's an important distinction between consuming yogurt 2 to 3 hours before bed versus immediately before lying down. Consuming large meals within 2 hours of sleep onset delays sleep onset by 12 minutes and reduces sleep efficiency by 5%. Lying supine immediately after eating increases reflux risk. Yogurt's casein forms a dense gastric clot that delays emptying, beneficial for sustained amino acids, but problematic if consumed immediately before sleep. My protocol: yogurt no later than 2 hours before sleep onset, ideally 2.5 to 3 hours before bed. Critical warning: medication interactions. Calcium binds numerous medications, forming insoluble complexes that cannot be absorbed. Fluoroquinolone and tetracycline antibiotics have reduced absorption of 30 to 50% with calcium. Separate yogurt by at least 2 hours before or 6 hours after these medications. Thyroid medications, levothyroxine, require an acidic, empty stomach. Calcium reduces bioavailability by up to 40%. Separate calcium-containing foods by at least 4 hours. Calcium channel blockers can be potentiated by high calcium intake. Anyone taking prescription medications should review dairy interactions with their pharmacist. Timing: 2.5 to 3 hours before target sleep time. Selection criteria: plain, unsweetened, full-fat Greek yogurt. Live active cultures with CFU count of at least 1 billion organisms. Multiple strains, including Lactobacillus acidophilus and Bifidobacterium lactis. No added sugars or artificial ingredients. Portion: 150 to 200 grams, providing 15 to 20 grams protein, 150 to 200 milligrams calcium, and 1 to 10 billion CFU of beneficial bacteria. Additions: half cup fresh or frozen berries for polyphenols and fiber. 1 tablespoon ground flaxseed for fiber and omega-3s. Temperature: cold, directly from refrigeration. Context: standalone evening snack, not part of a larger meal. My results after 90 days. Metabolic markers: fasting glucose, 98 to 84 milligrams DLL, 14% reduction. HbA1c, 5.6% to 5.2%, out of pre-diabetic range. HOMA-IR, 2.03 to 1.26, 38% improvement in insulin sensitivity. Sleep metrics: deep sleep, 47 to 78 minutes, 66% increase. Sleep onset latency, 23 to 11 minutes. Sleep efficiency, 82% to 91%. Body composition: waist circumference, 36.3, 34.0 inches. Body fat, 24.8%, 22.1%. Visceral fat, 112, 87 cm squared, 22% reduction. Gut microbiome: Bifidobacterium, 340% increase. Firmicutes to Bacteroidetes ratio, 4.2 to 1, 2.1 to 1. Common questions: will eating yogurt at night cause weight gain? Evidence suggests the opposite. Nighttime yogurt supports metabolic health through improved insulin sensitivity, enhanced growth hormone release during sleep when sugars are avoided, and sustained amino acid availability, preventing muscle catabolism. Can I substitute kefir? Kefir offers similar benefits with more diverse microbial populations. However, higher yeast content may be problematic for individuals with candida overgrowth or histamine sensitivity. The liquid consistency also means faster gastric emptying, potentially reducing the sustained amino acid release advantage. Is low-fat yogurt as effective? Full-fat yogurt offers advantages: improved absorption of fat-soluble vitamins, enhanced satiety, and conjugated linoleic acid. Critically, manufacturers often add sugar to compensate for reduced palatability in fat-free products. I recommend full fat unless specific conditions contraindicate it. How soon before bed is too close? At least 2 hours, ideally 2.5 to 3 hours. Consuming immediately before lying down increases reflux risk, delays sleep onset, and may reduce sleep efficiency. Conclusion: nighttime yogurt consumption represents a convergence of multiple optimization strategies: gut microbiome support, glycemic regulation, sleep enhancement, muscle preservation, and bone health through a single, simple intervention. The benefits are contingent on proper implementation. Selecting unsweetened full-fat yogurt with verified live cultures is essential. Timing consumption 2 to 3 hours before sleep optimizes both sleep architecture and overnight protein metabolism. Awareness of potential issues: lactose intolerance, histamine sensitivity, medication interactions, allows appropriate modifications. After 90 days, my metabolic markers moved from concerning to optimal ranges. My sleep quality transformed. My body composition improved despite adding evening calories. Nighttime yogurt stands out for its evidence base, multiple mechanisms of action, and sustainable simplicity.